Hi, and welcome back to another sermon here on the Gowanda Assembly of God YouTube page. We are in our sermon series on Proverbs, and today's message is called Image is Everything.
This week's message is called Image is Everything. If you ever have driven a car like that in your life, like I did, Paula had one of those, you know that image is everything. And you need to sell it and get something better image. Okay. I had one of those. Okay, your sneak peek for next week. Next week's message is called Terms of Endearment. This is Proverbs 23:26. It says, "My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes observe my ways." Terms of endearment, Jesus. We're going to look at very specifically one term that he uses when he addresses us all through the book of Proverbs. And what can we see just in the way he addresses us? It's going to be very cool. For this week, image is everything. I want to start off with a story this week. Everybody likes stories, right? We're going to go to Daniel chapter 4. Daniel chapter 4 tells a story that's super interesting to me about King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, a little bit of backdrop. Daniel, 600 to 650-ish BC. He lives in Israel. He's a very young man, probably a teenager, when the Assyrians come in, wipe out Jerusalem, and they take into exile a lot of the royals, the good stock. They take them back to Babylon as captives. A lot of them become probably just work slaves. Daniel and three of his friends become elected officials, but they're trained by the Chaldeans in all types of different disciplines. King Nebuchadnezzar is the king in the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He makes this huge statue. Everybody has to bow down and worship the statue. When they hear the music play, these three don't. They get cast into the fiery furnace. Jesus appears in there. That's Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? Nebuchadnezzar was probably one of the most powerful kings ever to live. In his time, he ruled the known world. The city of Babylon was probably the largest city that existed on earth in Daniel's day. He was extremely powerful. In fact, what ends up happening is God gives Nebuchadnezzar two dreams. And in the dreams, he sees a massive tree. And it's so big that all the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. And the beasts of the field find shade under it. And all these animals get food and protection from this massive tree. But then in the dreams, this tree is cut down. And it's not there anymore. But there is a stump and the root is left. I want to read a little bit here. Daniel interprets this dream for Nebuchadnezzar. God gives him the interpretation, and he tells him, he actually says, "May the king prosper, and may this message be for his enemies." But this is what it's saying. He's saying that God has established you as this massive tree and supplier, an overseer for the world. He wants you to recognize that it's him who has established you. And if you fail to do that, that tree is going to be cut down. And he says, but what God is promising is that if this happens to you, when you come to understand that it's God who establishes kings and rulers, not kings and rulers establishing themselves, he's going to renew you. He's going to bring you back, and that stump will not be dead. Okay? So I'm going to read to you a little piece from Daniel chapter 4. I'm going to start at 28 and read through 32. Okay? If you're with me, you can turn there. It says, "All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar at the end of 12 months, so it was a year after this dream. He was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon, and the king answered and said, 'Is not this great Babylon, which I have built by my mighty power as a royal residence and for the glory of my majesty?' While the words were still in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom has departed from you, and you shall be driven from among men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and you shall be made to eat grass like an ox. 7 periods of time shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules the kingdoms of men and gives it to whom he will. Now, the reason this story fits so well into our Proverbs study today is that it goes back to this thing that I kind of keep coming back to. He is the boss. If you have not connected yet with the fact that he rules this place, you need to. Because all of your work is going to be frustrated. You're going to find life frustrating until you come to grips with the fact that he owns it all. And he has given you gifts and responsibilities to manage his goods. And he wants that to be a wonderful experience. But there will be times where he will take rulers and people just like us and knock us down a notch if we just need to understand that we're not the boss. We're just not the boss. Okay? So as we go into Proverbs today, I want to encourage you to begin to pry your fingers off of your own image just a little bit. Okay? What you see in me is not the most important thing. And what people see in you, their take of you, your image, is not the most important thing. You're actually going to find that there's some freedom when you begin to move away from that. Okay? I wanted to show you a picture real quick. This is an artist's rendition of a piece of black onyx that is in a museum in France, I believe. And it has an inscription on it, and this is what it says. In honor of Marduk, his lord Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, in his lifetime had this made. So this is a piece of black onyx that Nebuchadnezzar actually had made, and that's his image on this piece of black onyx. Okay, so he really is a historical figure. You can search him up on Wikipedia if you want. He really did exist, and all these stories are not just fictional coloring book stories. They are history. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 28 for our verse that really sums up what our talk is about today. Images, everything. Whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. I wasn't going to do this, but I want you to see a little piece on this one. Daniel interprets it. Let me see if I can find. Daniel actually says to Nebuchadnezzar that you need to turn away from your sin and see God for what he is. It's in chapter 4. I'm not going to take the time to try and find it, but Daniel says kind of these exact things to King Nebuchadnezzar and says God will do this if you don't turn away from the sin of your life and recognize him as the one who establishes all these things. Okay? Whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper. He who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. Who wants to prosper? I do. The rest of you are liars. If you didn't raise your hand, you're a liar. Isaiah 57:15 says, For thus the one who is high and lifted up, for thus says the one who is high and lifted up, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy, I dwell in the high and holy place, and also with him who is of a contrite and lowly spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly, and to revive the heart of the contrite. You know what contrite actually means? I looked it up this week because I always talk about it. It talks about like facing who you really are. It actually in its pure form means crushed, is what contrite means. It's funny, the first of the Beatitudes, Jesus says, Blessed is the poor in spirit. What does that mean? When you come to a place where you realize what you're really made of and what value you have in this world outside of his value on you, it's a crushing thing, but it's part of realizing the magnificence of how you're made and why you are worth what you're worth. So if you've never come to that place before him where you feel like you're kind of crushed, and you wonder what he'll make out of the powder that he's crushed you into. But he is the creator and the potter, and that's what he does. John 8:31 and 32, so Jesus said to the Jews who had believed him, "If you abide in my word, you are truly disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Who has ever heard that before? You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So my question is, what have you always assumed that meant? You don't need to raise your hand or say anything, but I want you to think about that for a minute. What does that even mean? You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. We could say, the easy God, Jesus, Bible answer for that would be, well, that he saved us, or he came and died for us. That's the truth. We're sinners, and we need him to cover our sin and be saved, and that's absolutely fits into this. But I think it's incredibly deep, much, much deeper than that, and that's what I really want to kind of take a look at today. Think about this. In Nebuchadnezzar's case, did he, before he fell, before he was sent out, and he was literally like a wild man for 7 years. And it says then when 7 years had passed, suddenly King Nebuchadnezzar came to his senses and praised God for what he had done and established. And guess what? The kingdom was given back to him. That's crazy. Did he know the truth before he was sent out into the wild? No. No, he might have known, maybe been suggested to this, but he did not hear the truth. He didn't know the truth. Now, when we come to a place in our lives where we realize the humanity of who we are, that we are sinners, that we can be saved by grace, and we surrender our lives to him, do we not, in fact, become free? We are freed from sin and death. Saved from what? Saved from death. Saved from the requirements of the law. We are saved from all of that. The truth sets us free. Now, I've said a lot of times, we know this prayer as the sinner's prayer. People commonly call this the sinner's prayer. When somebody prays, Lord, I know that I am a sinner, and that there's nothing I can do to make myself right before you, because I can't pay for my own sin. But I know that you died for me, and I want to trust that, and I'm turning away from my sin, and I want you to wash my sin away and make me new, and I want you to live in my life. That's the sinner's prayer, or what people will call the sinner's prayer. God, huge problem. I can't. You can. Please do. Here's the keys. That's my shortened version. Let me tell you, that ought to be the first time of 1 billion times you pray a similar prayer in your life. Lord, I'm battling with some anger, and it's big, and I can't, but you can. Please do. Here's the keys. Lord, I'm sick, really sick, and I'm afraid. What if I die? I'm so afraid. I'm petrified of this. I just can't. But you can. Please do. Here's the keys. Lord, my marriage is falling apart. It's really, really bad. And I feel crushed. And I just can't. But you can. Please do. Please do. Here's the keys. That last line is a big deal, guys. Here's the keys. Big deal. Lord, my kids don't know you. They're not serving you. And that is so scary to me. And as much as I'd like to make that decision for them, I can't. I can't. But you can speak to them in a way that I can't. You can meet them in dreams. You can press your will into their hearts. Your word says that they're spending their lives being set up by you. You keep setting up situations where you're right there and you're just waiting for them to grope for you and you're right there waiting to be found. Please do. Here's the keys. Wow, that's a tough one. Here's the keys. Letting God reach your kids when you just want so bad to keep your foot on the gas pedal and just feed it. Sometimes you just got to let him work and trust him, right? Your life is filled with these situations where the truth is, it's bad. And I can't. But you can. Please do. Here's the keys. So the specific one we're talking about today is our own personal sin. Okay? There are things that we all have in our lives that he doesn't want in our lives. And there may be something that pops into your head immediately. Oh, no, not this. And we talk about, in 1 John it says, in fact, our kids' lesson this morning is, if we confess our sin, he is faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. But the next verse says, if any of you say you have no sin, you're a liar. Wow, hold on, time out. Liar, truth. Ooh. Do you see where all of a sudden you will know the truth? And the truth will set you free? We can all be in this room today and pretend that we have no sin, that we have nothing that he wants to make new and wash out and change in us. So we have a choice to make. We can be a liar and go on with life as it is, or we can know the truth. Let the truth be what it is and be free. That is a tough thing, guys. Some of you need to find a friend who knows how to keep their mouth shut, who knows the Lord, and you need to share what you're dealing with. Because accountability is a huge thing. Now, I will say that I think 1 John 1:9 is primarily your heart saying to God, this is the truth. This is the truth. I'm doing this, and I know that you hate that I'm doing that. But it's big. It's bigger than I want people to know it is in my life. My hatred. My fill in the blank. And I really can't change that. I can't stop that. But you can. Please do. Here's the keys. And then you got to leave the keys in his hands. You got to let him drive. You got to stop kicking him out the door and getting behind the wheel every time nobody's around. Okay? What you do when nobody's watching is who you are. It's funny, but I can behave when my wife's around like you can't believe. What do I do when she's not around? That's who I am. That's who I am. What do you look at when nobody's going to know? That's who you are. What do you say when it's just you and the other person who doesn't like the person you're talking about? That's who you are. That's who you are. Romans 12:1-2 says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. We're talking about worship today. To offer yourself a living sacrifice to God. Listen, the thing that pulls us into sin more than anything else in this world is not the devil. It's you. The Bible says we are led away to sin by our own passions and lusts. Your heart is a liar. Your heart's going to tell you it's not that bad. But what he's saying is, take that body of yours that wants to be fed and wants everything that it wants for itself and wants to please itself and be selfish, and sacrifice it. Put it on the altar and light that bear up and throw gas on it and walk away. That's what he's asking you to do. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Man, I want to live it with victory in my life. I want to produce some good stuff. And I can stand up here every week and tell you, listen, if you want death and pain and loss, just follow your flesh. If you want things worth having, treasures, peace, follow his Spirit and start denying that flesh part of you. That's something I got to live too. And every one of you who's in this room has every right to, at any point, call me up or walk up to me and say, how are you living? Because I'm just another person in this family who's been called to stand here. That's it. It doesn't mean I'm better. It doesn't mean I don't do things wrong. I'm a human just like you, and I need you. Our culture separates the guy talking up here as something different. I'm made out of dirt, just like you are. And as much as you need to support each other, if you support and pray for me and keep me accountable, this whole thing will be more healthy. It just will. We need each other. What we're going to do this morning is we're going to take some time. I want to give you time to think over, what's he calling you to? What's he pointing out in your life? If you give him 3 minutes quiet, he's going to remind you of things he'd like to change. I want you in that place to say, this really is bigger than I like to think it is. And it may be something that I have a really, really hard time. God, I know what you want me to do, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. It's really big. Please press into me. Please, like you can. I can't, but you can. Oh, just please do. Here's the keys.
As we wrap up another sermon, I'll throw a little fact out there that I'm sure will shock you as a listener, and that is simply that confession is pretty much never fun, but it is a vital part of coming into line with who made you, why you're here, and what the purpose for your life is. The more the bad news is bad, the more the good news is good. When we realize just how much we need him, it amplifies the wonder of the payment he made on the cross for us. I hope you have a great week and that God is forming your life and your walk every day.